On April 3rd, the new A24 movie, The Drama, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, finally hit theaters. This movie has gotten a lot of buzz leading up to it, and even more now that the movie has come out. After seeing the movie on Sunday, I am now here to dive into some of the reviews for this movie, talk about my personal thoughts on it, both in a spoiler-free and spoiler-filled fashion. So if you're trying to decide whether or not to see this movie, or if you've already seen it and want to know what other people are thinking, stick around to hear more. Big news for anyone who's watched my other videos following my journey to see 75 different movies in theaters this year. The Drama was my 25th film of the year. So basically, I am on track to hit my goal at the end of the year. We are now a third of the way through the year, and I am a third of the way to my goal. So come back at the end of this month for my April recap, and if you're interested, you can go back and see my recaps on my theater experiences from previous months as well. Now, to get into The Drama. This movie got a 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. It got a 77% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, an 81% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and it got a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. My personal Letterboxd review was 4 stars, but I was kind of teetering between 3.5 and 4, and I will talk a little bit more about why later. So taking a look at some of the reviews, there's this review from Impulse Gamer that says, "The Drama is an insightful, dark, funny, and emotionally stirring romantic comedy. It serves as an instant conversation starter that will either engage or enrage in equal measure." I think those are two very, very good words to be used in describing this film. It is engaging and enraging. And honestly, it is a little strange to say that this movie is a romantic comedy, but it is. An uncomfortable romantic comedy, but a dark romantic comedy nonetheless. This review from The Movie Maven states, "The entire movie is built around a chain of fixations and overreactions. People will evaluate the story based on their own life filters, belief system, past experiences, and moral compass. Drama-filled, tense and anxious, expect the unexpected." That is definitely something that I think also showed its brilliance through the marketing. Like, you really don't know what to expect going into this movie if it wasn't spoiled for you already. They kept everything very hush-hush and preserved a very unique theater experience in doing so. This review from The Gate, I think, is particularly funny but accurate and says, "I loved it. I also feel terrible after viewing it." Yeah, it's not exactly a feel-good movie. This review from The Only Critic, I think, did a really, really good job of actually describing what the narrative is really about. Sometimes with all the chaos that goes on, it's hard to really distinguish what the key themes are, but I think he does so in this review. He says, "The Drama argues that forgiveness is possible, even necessary, but only if we are willing to sit with the discomfort of how messy and human that process actually is." And I think that's brilliant. Like, at its core, this movie really is about forgiveness and second chances. Even in the most drastic of scenarios, forgiveness is possible. I do feel like that there's a lot of crossover in the positive and negative reviews. People are either positively touching on the chaos of the movie or negatively. Positively addressing the comedic aspects or negatively describing them, and so on. This review from The Movie Cricket states that the central conundrum of The Drama is that it raises a topic that's so serious that it's impossible to make funny, and then doesn't want to treat that topic with any seriousness. I honestly wouldn't really agree with that review. I think that it treated the topic with a lot of seriousness. It wasn't making fun of the topic it was addressing. It was making fun of the scenario our characters are in within their relationship. While yes, at times the comedy was uncomfortable, I think it was doing so with purpose. It was supposed to be uncomfortable. This review from MovieFreak.com says, "While there's plenty of food for thought, by the time this cinematic meal concluded, I still felt famished. Even worse, I was angry at Borgley for cooking up such a frustratingly unsatisfying banquet in the first place." I will say I don't think that this movie has necessarily a satisfying ending, but again, I think that was something that was done with purpose and intent. It had a little bit of ambiguity, but I feel the main way I would describe this ending is that it opened a door and didn't close it in the end of the movie. I don't think it wants to give us a necessarily right answer in the end of the movie by showing us how the protagonists solve their differences now. Maybe they never do. We don't know. But the real question is, how would you handle this situation? How do you handle similar situations in your own life? Is forgiveness possible for you? I think that it's really cool that this movie posed questions to its audience rather than answering questions for its characters. Some people didn't really like this. This review from Should I See It says, by the end, this pivots from an examination of human relationships to more of an experiment in audience reaction. Overall, the film feels disingenuous. So there were a lot of different feelings surrounding this movie, to say the least. But is it worth a watch? I think so. I especially think so if you have not yet had What Emma Did spoiled for you yet. I think that the marketing for this movie was particularly brilliant because if you go to see the movie and you're going in blind, nothing has been spoiled for you, then it really truly puts you in these characters' shoes. You will have your perception of this person, of this character, who so far you know to be kind, flipped on its head over the course of one conversation. So while you see all of these other characters fumbling to understand how their perception of a person has changed so radically, you are doing the same thing. In doing so, it creates a very, very unique experience as an audience member. I think there are very few movies in which you're asked to feel strong emotions, but not told what those emotions should be. There were a lot of visual and narrative recurring motifs that I think were used very well. The cinematography was quite nice, and of course, Zendaya and Robert Pattinson played these characters very well. They had really good chemistry in their bright and happy moments, in their comedic moments, and also in their serious, darker, tenser moments. Now I'm going to move into talking more about my feelings after seeing the movie. I will be talking about the narrative, so if you're not interested in hearing spoilers, now's the time to boot scoot on out of here. So, we learn in this movie that Emma, in her teenage years, was strongly considering and basically planning a school shooting. She was in a very dark place and ended up going down this radical, dark, desensitizing rabbit hole on the internet, which led her believe that this was the answer to her problems. Of course, we then find out that because of another shooting in her area, her plans get disrupted. Instead, she actually ends up finding community and becomes an activist for gun control and safety. I think one of the biggest questions in this movie is if her plan hadn't been disrupted, would she have gone through with it? But I think that's applicable to a lot of scenarios. As the movie points out, in what I thought was one of the most interesting points, how many people in our world have strongly considered doing something so truly awful in their lowest moments that just decided not to, whether it was an epiphany or something disrupted their plans. Like, how many people have gotten to such a place where they've almost done something that catastrophically changed their lives and others, but we'll never know about it because they never went through with it and they will never speak of it again. That alone is food for thought. Like, how many people have considered doing something awful, and how many awful things have we come close to doing ourselves? How would you like to be judged for that? Throughout this movie, what I thought was one of the most compelling performances was for the character of Rachel. This character is played by Alana Haim. I think I'm saying that right. Please let me know if I'm not. And her character kind of starts out as very carefree. Like, it's her idea to share the worst stories you've ever done. Her story is particularly bad about, like locking a special needs child in a closet. She doesn't seem very remorseful about it to this day. And yet we see her so quickly just like flip on a dime to being like, you're awful, you're a psychopath, how could you ever consider that, why would you do that? Even though it was her character who moments before was telling Charlie that when you cyberbullied that kid, you were like 15. Like, you're not fully mentally developed. We can't hold that against you. Emma's character didn't actually do anything. And yet, even the fact that she could consider doing something like that is unforgivable to the character of Rachel. And she played that, like, hatred so well. Like, we would have these moments where she's just, like, glaring at the camera, and I was like, I don't even want to be on the other side of that stare. It was just very well played. I was, like, intimidated by her as a character. What I thought was very interesting is how it wasn't just that we were narratively going through the impacts of your perception of your relationship changing and your perception of this person changing, but we were also visually taken through that, almost being taken into Charlie's mind of how he's replaying past occurrences and past moments in their relationship and seeing them in a new light, but also seeing himself not with the Emma that he knows, but the Emma that he now knows she used to be. Like, we see him standing with her younger self instead of the Emma we know now. And he has to wonder, like, is the person that I love now still this person at all? It really asks the question, are we defined by our worst mistakes? Is change possible? Going back to that review that I stated earlier, which says, the drama argues that forgiveness is possible, even necessary, but only if we are willing to sit with the discomfort of how messy and human that process actually is. And the discomfort was present throughout. Now, there's kind of this narrative motif used to represent second chances throughout this movie through the character of Emma giving Charlie a second chance the first time they met and forward from there. You know, he comes up and he tries to hit on her and it doesn't go well, and she says, "Do you want to start again? Like, let's try it again. Take it from the top." She gave him a clean slate. And she continues to do that. Later in the film, when their relationship is kind of being disrupted by the fact that she can tell that he is still lingering on this thought of her past mistake. She's like, "Let's start again." She acts like she doesn't know him. "Hi, how are you? Do you come here often? I feel like I've seen you before." When you find out about her past and that dark, dark place that she was in, it adds a lot of depth to the character because it makes you understand why she so readily gives second chances and why she values them so much. She herself was given a second chance. A chance to approach life and people and friendships in a completely different way. And it changed everything. Even though it seems clear she's not sure if she deserves the chance that she got. She immediately assumes and imagines that Charlie's gonna call the cops on her, leave her, move back to London. She's assuming that everybody's talking about it. The guilt and the regret stick with her. But that's part of the reality of a second chance. So then you get to the end of the movie when they both meet up at the diner and we found out that Charlie made the terrible decision to cheat on her. And he didn't even come clean about it. It came out on its own at the wedding. She's clearly made a mistake. He's clearly made a mistake. Where do they go from here? Like, we as an audience don't know anymore. I felt lost. I was like, I don't even know what I would have done in that situation. But we see Emma sit down and give him another chance. "Hi, my name's Emma. You're Charlie? Do you live around here? How'd you get a bloody nose?" Clean slate, start fresh. That's where the movie ends. In some of the reviews that I read earlier, it seems pretty clear that a lot of people didn't like this ending. It felt very unsatisfying. And I agree. It wasn't the most satisfying. It wasn't this open shut case, but I don't think it was supposed to be. I think this was very, very much a thought experiment, which again is not something everybody liked about it, but I thought that was cool. I thought it was interesting how they handled it, that it was very much preying on the audience and asking us to feel something, to feel anything. Discomfort, joy, anger, satisfaction, dissatisfaction, whatever it was. If this was you, if this was your fiance and you found out something that truly changed your perception of them, what would you do? Would you give them a second chance? Could you give them a second chance? It's definitely really hard to kind of summarize my thoughts about this movie because so much happened within it, but I think at its core, there were these concepts of, do you judge someone by their worst mistake? What does it look like to give someone a second chance for the one who's giving it and the one who's receiving it? So yeah, like, I thought it was interesting. Like, it definitely wasn't a feel-good movie or anything, but I just think it was an experience. Not exactly a pleasant one. It's asking you to go in and endure this crisis alongside these characters, but I think that's cool. I don't feel like we've had a movie that does something quite like this before. That's why I think, though, that my review kind of teetered. Like, I ended up giving it 4 stars. I enjoyed how open-ended it ended up being, but I will also say sometimes the dark comedy, which was intentionally uncomfortable, stalled out because of the level of discomfort. You just felt a little confused at times because of it, if that makes sense. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on it. I would love to hear what other people thought of this movie. I'll probably be back with another review or something next week. There's just a lot coming out this month and so much to talk about in the world of movies. If you have any ideas for specific movies that I should review or things that I should talk about, I love all things movies, so I'm just always looking to share my love of that and connect with people through that. So if any of what I just said makes sense in this video, and if you got this far, thanks!